thinking about the tiny details like that as well. And you're right, the world of pro wrestling and video games the Venn diagram is much larger than the than the other side of the pieces because yeah, the level of I'm going to say nerdum in the best way because that's exactly what pro wrestling is. If you're a pro wrestling fan, you're a nerd. If you're a video game fan, you're a nerd. If you're a fan of really anything, you're a nerd for that thing. And so the level of nerdum for different people is obviously in different ways and how much their Venn diagram is. But the world of pro wrestling and video games basically go hand in hand. I mean, the New Day has really brought that to the forefront also with the way Xavier Woods up, up, down, down. And there's so many people that are also doing tabletop games that they're really into. It's just whatever you are into, everyone at some point or has either heard of it or knows other people that are into it. So I love that you were crossing that over and well. And I'm surprised I'm not seeing more of it down here because I know a lot of the wrestlers down here are video games fan as well.
It's one thing like you mentioned with the New Day as well, getting all that stuff on a grand stage. It's pretty cool to see that representation of video game love because oftentimes video games have that stigma of, making kids' brains rot and all that fun stuff. But I want to say times have changed now.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to cover some esports and I've been to the esports awards. And whether I knew who these people were, I knew millions of other people did, and they would go nuts for whoever was there. And it was so awesome to see because it's so weird that if you're playing esports, you can't legally do it until you're 18, but then by the time you're 25, somehow you're an old veteran and you have to retire. It's the weirdest thing. And afterwards, you either go be a coach or own a team, just depending on how you really used your money. And so the esports world is so fascinating to me, and I am surprised that it isn't bigger than it is. But I think people aren't giving it as much chance either because they have to explain to them that people are paying to watch these people play video games, but the people playing video games can win millions of dollars. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a good way to earn your keep and make
Yeah.
a living.
Yeah. And the way Twitch has really crossed over as well into the pro wrestling world has been amazing. I mean, you had, even up to WWE, for a while telling people they can't have the Twitch because, they can't control that and whatever they do on there, uh, again, they can't control. So they didn't want that happening. But you have so many other people, like Adam Cole said, if it wasn't for his Twitch fans, he, a lot of times that helped get him through really dark days, and that building that community like that is really awesome because you are a group of people who again have this same goals, not well, a lot of people have the same goals but interest, and then you are building this community where everybody can lean on somebody else, and if somebody's going through a hard time there's actually people there for you. And a lot of times people unfortunately think that nobody's there for you, so building communities like that I thought is really cool.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now, explain to us how the Prince of Pop Tarts came about.
Yeah, so where do I start? Um, yeah, so like I went camping for the first time years ago, and I had a
Oh,
friend actually introduce me to Pop Tarts over a campfire. We had some s'mores Pop Tarts. They were delicious, and I'm not sure what the uh, indie wrestling scene is like over where you are, but oftentimes a lot of folks, come to shows, they're helping out with the ring, they're wrestling, and then they're tearing down the ring. Just don't have a lot of time to really, you know, look out for themselves, making sure that they're fed. So one thing I've actually done since I started wrestling, since my very first match, is I have like a little post-match ritual where I always have Pop Tarts on me. I like to share them with my opponents with the locker room. So if you are ever on a show with me, anyone can attest. You'll see me running around with Pop Tarts, just feeding everybody, and that's kind of where
oh,
the moniker kind of came from. But that kind of bled into my in-ring stuff as well. Because a lot of that stuff was just behind the scenes, and like
right.
none of the fans knew what the hell this Prince of Pop Tarts thing was. So because it was something that only the wrestlers knew about because it was happening backstage. But yeah, it slowly bled into my character, as a lot of things do, and just my happy-go-luckiness. Like I mentioned, I started getting some Pop Tart gear made for my wrestling matches as well. So it's just, yeah, a weird character development, I should say.
How many levels of people do you have to go through to try to get a sponsorship from Pop Tarts? I guess is the question.
It's funny, like in a million years, I would say it's never going to happen. But at the same time, I look at Alex Zane getting the Taco Bell deal out in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, so it is possible. But honestly, I've been adding them uh, in posts for years, and I haven't gone so much as I like. So I don't think it's ever going to happen unless I make it big one day, and maybe I can get some like weird like Bootio's spot at a WrestleMania
Yes.
or something. Or I think there was this recent Pop Tarts thing. I don't watch football, but there's like a Pop Tarts bowl thing that
Mhm.
a lot of my friends were telling me about with like some weird um Pop Tart character costume coming out of a toaster at a football game. It was a
Oh,
super
yes, yes.
ridiculous. Yeah,
I heard
like
about this.
yeah, that was some ridiculous thing. If I could pull something off like that at a WrestleMania in, 20 years, that'd be great. But honestly, I don't think anything's gonna come out of this.
I have faith that something will come out of this, and Pop Tarts are going to sponsor you at some point because they'd be dumb not to.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Now, with Pop Tarts, there's the age-old debate whether they're good at room temperature or warmed up. Again, everybody has their own opinion. For you, which flavor is your favorite warm, and which one is your favorite at like room temperature?
Ah. Hmm. So my favorite flavor, regardless of whether or not it's toasted or not, would be s'mores. It's kind of my go-to.
Yeah, I think that's
Um, Yeah, I think that might be the objectively correct answer. Obviously, it's great it's toasted. It's great on its own.
mhm.
I had some friends recently joke about how I need to start bringing toasters to shows because I usually hand them out at room temperature because I don't have a toaster on me. But yeah, s'mores would be my favorite.
Okay. Yeah, s'mores. I think s'mores, and I think it's brown sugar cinnamon is fantastic as
Mm,
well. Yeah,
classic.
yeah. Now, I've saw that you, like you said, are can be reckless with your wrestling choices, whether it be hardcore matches or not. What is how many hardcore matches have you been in, and what is your psychology going into them?
I'm not a big hardcore person, to be
Okay,
honest. The
there's that
footage you
one match
probably
I saw.
saw was the super graphic, bloody one.
Yeah.
That was like a big one for us because we were finally getting a title shot, and we wanted to really tell a big story behind that because we've been feuding with a tag team called State of Emergency, who was basically a tag team that was handpicked by management to win and get a bunch of opportunities. And as the
Nice.
underdogs fighting for every little opportunity we get, we kind of were punching up towards them. So we had that big blow off to their feud and had that big street fight. I've actually had two other street fights that were not really hardcore. They were more comedy based.
Oh, I like
Uh,
that.
yeah, which is a lot more my style because me and my partner's moniker is the Mischief Maker, and I'm the Prince of Pop Tart. So you kind of see where we would like to have some fun with our matches.
A little bit.
So I would, literally go to Toys R Us and go shopping and find some props to use in my matches. So the last street fight that I had, I was using Nerf guns, I was using Legos, I was using RC Mario Kart. I've used Beyblades in the past, so that's super fun to me, and it's just being out there with my friends, screwing around and popping the crowd. But obviously, there's the merits with the hardcore street fights. If I really want to tell a story, I'd be down to do it again. But I do feel like that was kind of a one-off for me because it's not really something that I don't want to say I didn't enjoy it. It's just not really my cup of tea.
Right. I mean, hey, you tried it that one time and you realize you're not a fan, so you could just move on and not do that one again.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of styles that are a little divisive, what are your thoughts when it comes to intergender wrestling? Because I know that there are a lot of people that have problems with it, and then obviously there's the other half that sees pro wrestling as art the way it is and has no issue whatsoever. So, kind of, now you since you've been in some intergender matches, what are your kind of thoughts on the intergender wrestling?
Yeah, so one thing I've learned is that there's no right answer to this question.
True.
So
Yeah.
I'll cover my perspective just because that's all I can really speak for. But I'm one of my head coaches at the Lionsgate Dojo is Nicole Matthews. She's one of the best wrestlers in the country. And if people weren't open to intergender, like I would not have had the privilege to wrestle her, and that would be really heartbreaking because the way I see it is that it's just two wrestlers in there.
Mhm.
I don't wrestle any differently, but whenever I wrestle a woman or whenever I wrestle a man, and yeah, I think my bottom line is that wrestling is just, two wrestlers. Everybody is trained. Everybody is having this consensual violence, and we're all there to, tell stories and show off our athleticism. I do understand the other side of things, especially for individuals with that may be sensitive to problems like, domestic violence. So I do not want to, undermine their genuine feelings because uh, their feelings are valid, and I can't say that they're wrong. But I can speak for myself and just say that I've had some of my favorite matches with women, and like I mentioned before, one of my coaches who taught me, 99% of everything I know is a woman. So I have to give a lot of credit to her.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, everyone's opinion is valid, but the way I view it is, again, it's just art, and but again, everyone's opinion is valid, and I love that people are still, doing it, and I think that we need to, I guess, be more open-minded when it comes to certain kind of wrestling. And again, if it's not your cup of tea, then don't watch it or participate in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as much as this is a physical sport, it's a mental one as well. How do you kind of what mental workouts do you kind of enjoy doing?
Ooh. Huh. It's a tricky question. Yeah, I guess like from a mental standpoint, I guess one of my bigger struggles is just to, whether it's like small things like, memory in a match if you're trying to remember spots, and as well
Mhm.
as like stuff outside of my control. There's a lot of politics in this business, unfortunately, and there's a lot of that stuff that has worn down on me over time, but it's so important to have a good support network. I would not be here today if it wasn't for my tag partner, Sharif Morrow, who's always had my back, who's always lent an ear and has always let me vent and validate all my feelings because we've been through so much together. And if he wasn't there by my side, I probably would have quit a long time ago because I've been through a fair amount in this industry, and I'm so lucky to have the friends and the coaches and so many people support me in everything I do to in order to keep pursuing my dreams.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it's again, if it's not for certain people in your life, it can make the rest of life really hard. So I'm glad you found that person that really helps you, able to you can vent to and just bounce ideas off of. So that's so great.
Yeah.
Now, if people haven't seen you wrestle, what three matches should they go look for?
Ooh. Let's see. So you mentioned the street fight earlier, like
Mhm.
as that one was pretty intense, and there was a lot of emotion behind that one. It was Reloaded, which is named my tag team, with myself and Sharif Morrow against State of Emergency, the tag team of Sebastian Wolf and Miles DeVille. That one was probably a career highlight for me. One of my favorite matches ever is against a wrestler named Daniel Makabe for a defunct promotion called 3-2-1 Battle. It should be on YouTube if you want to look that up. It was just a very fun clash of styles. He's a very technical wrestler, and at the time I was very not necessarily lucha, but obviously a lot of Rey Mysterio influences and high flying and stuff. So that one was one of my favorites as well. A third match. I'm gonna bring up Sebastian Wolf again. He's one of my favorite wrestlers to work. He's a big dude, and I'm a small dude, and I like getting thrown around. So you can kind of see where that's something that I enjoy. So if you actually look up WrestleCore on YouTube, there's a weird little Squid Games match. WrestleCore
Oh,
is known for their like gimmicky stuff. So they had like a Squid Game stipulation with like the red light and the green light gimmick. But after the shenanigans. I won the match, but then I got immediately thrown into a singles match with Sebastian Wolf, and then from there it became a traditional match. So you kind of, if you want to skip the first part of the match, feel free to and jump to the later half. You're more than welcome to. But I really like that match with Sebastian Wolf because, like I said, I love the big man, small man dynamic because I love getting tossed around. I love selling, but at the same time, in the end, I fire up and I get my comeuppance at the end, and If